Welcome to Minister to the first session of these, and I hope we have many useful exchanges during the course of them. My first question, there was a briefing organised yesterday, so to some extent maybe events have overtaken this, but there is still, I have to say, not all my concerns were laid, and I think there's still significant concern that because a school in the past had low results or was from a disadvantaged background, or even considerations such as gender that appear to be factoring in to the calculations model. We don't know what the model is. It's not been published. I've asked you to publish it. You haven't done so. I've asked the steering group to do so. I believe it should be published because students deserve to know the manner in which this is being calculated.
Thank you. Minister. Minister.
And thank you to the Deputy for raising the question. The purpose of the calculated grade system is to arrive at the grade each student would have achieved if the Leaving Certificate examinations had taken place as normal. Students' expected performance in a subject and level is combined with information about how students in the school have fared in this subject in recent years, in line with national performance standards over time and with their performance at junior certificate cycle. Using a range of different but complementary sources of data will provide the most accurate and fair set of results possible. No one pattern of expected results on its own will determine the calculated grades, as the model will combine the range of patterns to generate the grades in a way which is as reasonable, fair and accurate to students as possible. The design of the calculated grades model was informed by advice from a technical working group comprising experts drawn from the State Examinations Commission, the Inspectorate of my department, the Educational Research Centre and international external experts. While these data sets do include certain demographic information, this demographic information is not being used as part of the process of generating the calculated grades through the standardisation process. However, in order to make sure that the standardisation process is doing what it is supposed to do, there is a separate additional process of being carried out called validation. Validation serves to ensure that the statistical standardisation process is presenting results that are as fair and equitable and in line with previous outcomes as much as possible, and to check whether the model is resulting in any particular group being advantaged or disadvantaged relative to previous years. The use of demographic characteristics, including gender and socioeconomic status of the school, was inherent in the technical working group's design of the calculated grades model. Not to run these checks would run the risk of not being able to tell whether or not the standardisation process was working to ensure that the Leaving Certificate results of 2020 are properly comparable with Leaving Certificate results in any other year. My department has published a short guide to data collection, national standardisation and quality assurance, which provides further details about the workings of the calculated grades model, and this is, of course, available online.
I didn't really hear anything there from the Minister I didn't already know. I have had concerns about calculated grades in the past. I recognise the difficult situation that was there, and I had numerous conversations with your predecessor in relation to what should happen next. But I particularly have concerns around school profiling. My concern is that there are children out there, or young adults really in reality, about to applying for their university place and who will either not get their place or indeed may fail the Leaving Cert that might not otherwise have. And we can talk about that these statistics will not be used. They're only there to kick the tyres of the system, as it were, to check that it's all working. But the first document and any subsequent document that the department has produced says that grades will be adjusted, and taking into account things like demographic and gender. So I think it's quite reasonable that people are concerned, especially when the model is not being published, and I have requested that the model be published, that it can be subject to public scrutiny and that we can all understand the different inputs and how it will have an impact on an individual Leaving Cert student or an individual Leaving Cert class. They deserve to know. There needs to be transparency here, Mr.
Thank you, Deputy. Just again to reiterate that all checks and balances that are put in place with the calculated grades model is to ensure that it is a fair and equitable system, and indeed that it's a system that stands against that Leaving Cert 2020 will have the same high quality and integrity as Leaving Cert 2019 and indeed Leaving Cert 21 and others going forward. While these data sets do include certain demographic information, this demographic information is not being used as part of the process of generating the calculated grades through the standardisation process. However, in order to make sure that the standardisation process is doing what it's supposed to do, there is a separate and additional, completely additional process being carried out, referred to as validation. Thank you.
No, there is a certain contradiction in that, because if it fails the validation, if it's shown that the model isn't producing the expected result, that somehow it's out of step with what we're expecting from a particular demographic or a particular gender, there would have to be adjustments, there would have to be changes. Grades would have to either come down or up. So that has real-life implications for students. And it really isn't good enough. Minister, you haven't answered the question, the primary question I've made is, there's a model there. It deserves to be subject to public scrutiny. Why will you not publish the statistical model? Obviously, it is complex and it's technical, but I think all the same, there are many people in the public sphere that would have a view on it and that would be able to inform the public discourse as to whether this is fair or not. The reality is that we can all think of examples of an exceptional student within a class that otherwise the results might have been weaker, or indeed an exceptional class that might have bucked the results. Now, they were depending on their ability to perform an exam. That is gone now. How can they have any confidence that this model will produce for them fairness? I'll give you an example of one class that I came across recently where there had never been a grade above a C in agricultural science, and there was 5 A1s. There's no junior cert agricultural science. How's the junior cert results going to tell us that they were going to perform so well? That just isn't there. So, Minister, we need to have confidence. Will you publish the model so we can all scrutinise it?
Margaret.
Again, just for clarification, to acknowledge the demographic information is not being used as part of the process of generating the calculated grades through the standardisation process. And just in relation to, again, to confirm that my department has published a short guide to data collection, national standardisation and quality assurance, which provides further details about the workings of the calculated grades model, and this is available and has been published online.
Margaret.